All right. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, or good morning, wherever you are. Uh, but welcome to the June Indicators of Behavior Sub-Project meeting for the Open Cybersecurity Alliance. My name is Charlie Frick from Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab. I am your chair and host, and very glad to have folks back. I know it's been a little bit of a hiatus since our last meeting because we've switched to a once every 3 months. And so I wanted to give some updates on a few efforts that we've been working on the project. And then we'll do a little abbreviated technical talk today on the revision 3 of the indicator of behavior reference implementation after we've gone over some of our news and updates from some of the various collaborations. And then we'll open the floor to discussion and talk about some of our next steps on the project. So again, welcome to everybody. To start with, since we last met in March, I wanted to give you guys an update on the Cybersecurity Automation Sub-Project, or CASP, Cybersecurity Automation Village Plugfest that occurred back in April. IOB was well represented, as well as many OCA projects, and also several efforts from CISA and other tasks from OASIS as well. It was really well attended. And I will, in the meeting minutes, provide links to the Sweat Equity folder for the CASP Plugfest. You'll be able to see all of the IOB talks as well as the things that we provided to the Plugfest. One thing that was very well received and used heavily during that event was we conducted some threat emulation for the Olympic Destroyer campaign and were able to store Sysmon and NetFlow logs from the event and make those open source and available. So if anyone's looking for a set of endpoint and network logs to test different research, we have those publicly available with some threat narrative documentation as well. And I will give that link out in the meeting minutes on both the listserv and the Slack. But for those that might want it right now, I will also post that link in the chat. And that's where you can get access to all those files. But we had a really good demonstration of IOB. We were able to integrate very rapidly with Peraton's IMX taxi server to show that by adhering to sticks, it was very easy for folks to capture our bundles as well as load up the extension definitions and handle the extended objects that we've been using in our reference implementations. And we also were able to have a very good demonstration of our Neo4j integration, a GUI-based sticks modeler. We showed that at our last meeting, and I'll give a minor update with that we are very fast approaching making our official merge request on GitHub. When that does go public, I will be sure to send an update to the project. But we also were able to integrate with Cacao Roaster, and it was all captured on YouTube. So in the meeting minutes, I'll provide not just the link to the files, but you'll be able to get to the steps in the recording for our talk, as well as our demonstration. And so that was one of our big developments, but we also have a few more things that we wanted to share. For this project, we also do a lot of collaboration with the other OCA projects. And on the technical steering committee, we really have come to understand that IOB is not alone in its use of sticks extensions. And as we talked to the other projects, we realized that we really needed to look at how we managed our custom sticks extensions for the various projects and contexts. And so towards that, I will post another link in the chat and show you guys. We've done a heavy revamp of the of these extensions, and we're hosting that on GitHub. I will put that on the screen in just a moment. And in there, we also gotten some heavier collaboration with Francesco and the high value target methodology folks. And so I'll show you real quick the Stix extension GitHub. We've been doing some on LinkedIn. Give me a moment just so I can see everyone's faces and the chat. Just have to reorganize all the Zoom windows as soon as you share screen. But essentially, after heavy review with the other TSC members, we've revamped the OCA Stix extension repository. Now, there is a 2.x or Stix 2.0 and 2.1 to get to extensions, where you can see the cyber observables, the Stix domain objects, as well as getting to the extension definitions and the schemas for the extensions. And so those will be breakdown from the different names that we have. But I also wanted to draw attention to this context section, where we're also initially beginning to host simple markdown documents or ASCII doc to describe your different initiatives and which extensions in the repo you might be using. And this is fairly flexible, so if someone wants to put together a summary to have here, we absolutely can do that. But additionally, the extensions themselves, well, not the extension definition, sorry, will have their write-ups. I don't want to steal Francesco's thunder, so I'm holding off on bringing up the tool one in a moment, but I will in just a second. But here are markdown documents that will provide documentation on the fields. The schema folder is where you can get to the schema files. And if you include extension definition objects, we have an extension definition folder as well. But under all of this was our talk. We've been talking with Francesco off and on how we could better, integrate the high value target methodology. And after a lot of back and forth, we were looking at it as a good extension to the tool SDO. And so Francesco and his team put a lot of work into writing up this documentation, and we collaborated together to be able to host the schema. And Francesco, I wanted to make sure to give you a few minutes here at the top of the meeting to kind of talk a little bit about that collaboration and effort.
Thank you very much.
I'll hand the mic to you.
Yeah, thank you. And I will share my screen if possible.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you. All right. Going to. As well, struggling with jumping from Zoom, but okay. All right. So, Tim, thank you very much for having me here. Just a few words about what we have done with the OCA team and Charles. So, first of all, a couple of words about ourselves. So, we have a bit of a history in working in the cyber resilience space. I've co-authored, among others, the World Economic Forum Cyber Resilience Index, which is a core publication for cyber resilience. And as well, I lead the biggest community out there for cyber resilience, which is at issa.org with 2,300 people now. Launching a number of initiatives, again, to promote cyber resilience without any personal gains, is just to spread the word and something that makes the job easier for all the practitioners out there. And the reason why we got so passionate about high value target is one, we realized over time that there's a lot of investment that goes possibly on the wrong assets. So one of the core fundamental strategic design principles of a well-designed cyber resilient enterprise is actually you focus your effort on where they matter most. So obviously, you need to focus on threat-informed defense, so what is most likely to be targeted, but as well the attack surface, which is not always the most vulnerable or the less protected asset, but is actually the one that can cause the highest inherent impact. So we realized a number of symptoms that in multiple organizations, talking to peers, both in the banking sector and beyond, that there is not a clear shared understanding on what are the most critical assets, and therefore it's difficult to focus the defenses really where they matter. And this basically allows for the propagation of a so-called domino effect, which is what you want to prevent from a cyber resilience standpoint. So the underlying possible root cause is actually an ontology problem. We have definitions from different words. Cyber resilience, again, is like an extension of cybersecurity and an evolution of operational resilience. When we look at different definitions from different interdisciplinary areas, we see that tools, for example, in STIX, they are defined as legitimate software that can be used by threat actors to perform attacks. But then when we look at others, there are different, like fairly generic definitions. Yet the term critical assets keeps appearing everywhere in the mentioned by vendors, but as well regulators. It appeared even 20 times into the SolarWinds dispute. So another like little inject just to show that there are different definitions. The voice of the adversary is a technique promoted by MITRE, for example, to actually really looking at things from an adversarial lens. So in the moment when we define the very first step of any risk management framework, you define the value of the assets, you use the voice of the customer, you use what the business believes is most relevant, but you don't take into account what can cause the highest inherent impact from an adversarial standpoint. So we fix that by adding to the existing terminology that are the ones that you see here. We wanted to add an additional lens, more detail, that allows defenders to actually really identify their behavioral targets. So here, there's the definition. It's just a better version of what you see on the GitHub page. So definitely go out there to take a look on the GitHub page. So we just define high-value targets in a nutshell as applications that can be used and abused as well. So your defensive stack, protective stack, crisis management stack becomes part of the attack surface, as seen in numerous incidents. The high-value target methodology is open source, is a community first type of principle. You see on the website as well the concepts that underpin the methodology. And this again is a beautified version, not so beautiful maybe, that of the information you find in GitHub. So you see high-value target open vocabulary with different definitions of the tool types, you may say. So what we really need is actually adoption. So we want to see data populated from the community. We are open to any idea on how we can actually spread the word, so that we don't just tag adversary like adversarial tools per se, or legitimate tools that can be used during attacks, which obviously have a good protective and defensive value. But this actually can expand and can make threat-informed defense become threat-informed architecture, threat-informed compliance, and much more. Because using the high-value target concept in this context can actually bring it as well back to the BIA people, business continuity, then at the core of a cyber resilient enterprise. We have as well the tool type open vocabulary additions with basically the attributes that that have been seen being leveraged by the attacker during that specific during their activities. Wrapping up, there's a website that we have, highvaluetarget.org. You can read more about the methodology if you wish, but still I encourage to look at the STIX extension GitHub page, because that's where you download it. We need help to spread the word. Here is where maybe many technical people, like, they have issues. You create something that you think is valuable, but then you have to promote it. So any idea, any leverage anyone has, it's welcome. And what's next in terms of high value target is actually going and then keep influencing the community, this time on the business continuity management side and ISO 22000 and more, to really try to challenge then the operational resilience side of things. If we do these things in parallel, then we will get at some stage in a place where you can look both at the business view and the adversarial view in methodologies and frameworks, not only in threat-informed defense, which is, by the way, just a great step forward. So thanks a lot again, Charles, and the whole team.
Thank you, Francesco. We're happy to have this in there. And we can sync up afterwards. If you'd like these slides distributed, we can do that through the Slack listserv, or if you want them on the GitHub, we can work that too. So whatever you wish. But
I will send them to you right now. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Alrighty, then I'm gonna, if it's all right with you, I'm gonna try and take over the screen again and go through a little bit of some of our additional, and hopefully I can find everything once more. Alrighty. So as I was mentioning, and some of you might have noticed on LinkedIn, we've been doing some heavy promotion of the STIX extension repo. High value targets, one of the major contributions that we've gotten recently in there. But another thing I'd like to bring up is some of the work that the Cacao team, mostly Vasilio Mavridis and Mateus Zich, have been able to do. And they've been able to get a very nice definition of the playbook SDO and the course of action property extension to support playbooks uploaded onto this repo. There's been a lot of really good work done here. I would encourage, and I'll have all the links in our minutes, but I will include this one as well as soon as I learn how to copy and paste again. But this is some really good work on how we can embed playbooks into their own objects or reference them. A big point of clarification I wanted to make, because often as we do our demos and examples, you'll see us embed whole security playbooks as base 64 strings. And an oversight that we hadn't brought to light very well was, as we were defining the schema, that is one way you can embed a playbook, but there is support as well for embedding a URL to your playbook and a file hash of it, so that you could just have a download for larger objects. As we do imagine that's going to be an issue for some environments where they might want to limit the size of their STIX objects within their taxi servers. And so wanted to make sure that I called that out, that we do have that support out there, and that we've been pretty active on making sure there was support for these extensions, as we've been working to fold that into our reference implementation. And with that said, I'll pause for a second to see if there are any questions on the work on STIX extensions, as well as the CASP demo. If anybody had something they wanted to ask or a point they wanted to make, I'll pause for a moment so that you can be heard. Just please feel free to come off mute and speak if you had something you wanted to say. I'll take that as everyone's good for me to go forward. So before we get up to the larger group discussion, another thing I wanted to go over was the fact that, and hopefully we are sharing, Can I get some thumbs up if everyone is, make sure I am sharing the right screen? Are we all seeing my cursor and the current playbook extension page? Fantastic. Because I next wanted to talk a little bit about our revision 3 of the behavior bundle that we've gotten released. Now, right now, some things like the high value target have not been integrated in this revision. Kind of takes us through where we were in our research right around the point of the CAS Plug Fest. But I'm going to give you guys an abbreviated tour of it so that we can, for the sake of time and having discussion, because I think there's a few options I want to talk about for the overall project as well this month. But wanted to give big thanks to Mr. Ali Shahig from the Applied Physics Laboratory here. He went through and was the lead author for our main technical documentation that accompanies that beautiful 3,400 line JSON. But so you can also grab this document and get all the gory detail of all the work that we've done in there. But that said, anybody that's been on these meetings knows that I'm a bit of a fan of the Neo4j graph database. And what we've done today is take a subset of the behavior bundle so I could really just focus on some of the changes that we have, because I thought you guys might like to just see at least what some of the newer modifications and features are. So again, we've been staying with the same scenario of APT37 Reaper, just so that we had a common point of reference between the different revisions of the implementation. I will let you guys know that we are working on a few other threat cases. I'm not sure exactly when I'll have them ready for public release, but one in particular that we're actively researching here at the lab is Volt Typhoon, as I know that is of high interest to a lot of folks in our community, and that is something that we are working pretty heavily on for defining behaviors and detections and correlations, as well as some response actions. And as soon as we have stuff that we can share, we will share it. But today, now some of this is going to look, for those who have seen the reference implementation, we still have in dark blue here our individual behavior objects. I can kind of pop out the message key here. Well, and of course, this is the moment that my mouse dies, because the demo gods always have a sense of humor. Let me plug in a spare real quick. Everyone's patience is greatly appreciated. There we go. But, still kind of the same. We have the overall behavior, and then, we got those options that we can pull out of there that get tied to the detections that will have information on the various analytics, normally encoded in base 64. Our examples on the reference implementation are Sigma rules that can then be extracted. Another thing, this actually started in revision 2, but just wanted to make sure for every detection. Now I'm just showing a subset. The whole bundle has a lot more data than this, as well as all the extension definitions and observables and identity objects and whatnot. But for every detection, they also map to a detector SDO that we've added to help you understand what tools and sensors were used to get the logs for that detection. This is just one example that we did for Sigma. And when feasible, we also link in from MITRE ATT&CK the data sources and data component STIX objects that can help capture what type of information you'll need for your various detections. Now, the big areas I wanted to focus on, though, were some of the changes that we've done up here. In the previous versions of the indicator of behavior reference implementation, we were using a custom object called a detection group, which is where we were holding the correlation workflows for correlating alerts. After a lot of discussion from the various OCA members and the sub-project members, there was some concern that that might be one custom object too many. And so what we've done as a compromise is we are using a regular STIX grouping object to say, here are the detections for our particular campaign. And now we are using a correlation course of action object that would detect that group. And so what you'll see is the course of action SDO that then has playbook options, playbook objects that are related to it. And here we're still showing examples in both BPMN and Cacao. And that allows us to still hold the correlation workflow. But what we also now have is related to the course of action object. We're using a note SDO that will let you know that this could trigger other COAs. And so the logic inside the correlation workflow does that as well. But this way in the bundle, you can pull out that, hey, if the score produced by this correlation workflow gets to 3 or higher, it will trigger a course of action for mitigating incident. And just so you guys can see, fingers crossed, I can also copy the base 64, and I've got a version of Cacao Roaster up here. I'm really taunting the demo gods today, but we're going to see, I think from the Neo4j GUI, there's one little extra bit up top, so I'll get rid of that. This will take a moment, but it should import. Fingers crossed, just so you can see that I'm not a liar and that we do have a whole big correlation workflow that we have been reviewing with our community and been working to get this implemented in Cacao as well as the legacy BPMN formats that we were using. And because this conversion was one of the areas that we spent a lot of our time. And I see my video is staggering. I'm hoping that I'm not breaking up on the other end of the call for you guys. But this is where you can now see we have all that correlation logic captured in Cacao. We have not implemented this into a SOAR yet like Sorka, but just sharing that we're working on how we can have these elements easily shareable and easily consumable by other tools. And then similarly, we have mitigation workflow, both with BPMN and Cacao workflows in there. And note that this mitigation has a step that could trigger quarantining. If that is selected by an analyst, then we provide the quarantine and remediate playbook, also in both formats. That's just a really limited, example, as if anyone, but if you really feel like diving in, I'll just show equals. All the other big blob of data that we normally include in our behavior bundle is all there on GitHub for your enjoyment. But those are the major additions that we've had. I wanted to ask if there were any questions about this latest revision of the behavior bundle before I kind of open the floor for some more general conversation related to where we'd like to start taking the project and other topics of interest. Does anyone have any questions? No is okay, but I'm just checking. All right. In that case, I'll stop sharing and the screen, and a couple things wanted to.
I still want to listen.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. On the phone, you had a question? Or maybe whoever's on the phone might, if you're asking a question, I can't quite hear it. Okay. You might, whoever's dialed in on the phone, if you're not trying to speak, you might need to mute yourself. Now, I just wanted to share some of the feedback that we've been getting with the group. On GitHub, we have been receiving several issues and topics for potential changes to how we represent extension definitions and what additional SDOs we could include in the reference. Those are all being actively looked under consideration, and we'll be looking how we can fold those into a revision 4. That would be on the later end of the year that we'd be able to get that out. But I just want to let you guys know that we are taking your feedback. But I think Francesco really hit it on the head that we see a few areas that we badly need to kind of start driving adoption. And an area that conversation that I'm looking to start here and also on our listserv and Slack is what type of messaging campaigns we'd like to do, if we'd like to see about how we do a more joint OCA promotion, whether that's through press releases or other types of demos. I think CASP worked really well to get a lot of visibility for a lot of our efforts, but just want to start, capturing people's interest on how we promote some of these projects. Also, we are here at the lab starting to work on more tools to help improve vendor adoption. So towards that, we are going to be working, we are working on creating some job aids. That is our intent to be able to share publicly. So guides for how to create behavior bundles that would be targeted more towards the threat intel providers and MSSPs, as well as potentially some of the EDR, TIP, and SIEM communities, but also job aids that are also geared towards network defenders and how to process and use these tools. And then we are also looking at perhaps later this year how we have a little bit more of a, I don't know if we call it a miniature industry day, but some sort of event to really focus on vendors and see how we can capture their feedback and provide more tools and ways to make these standards easier for them to adopt, how we can incentivize that. And we are looking to release a few more open source capabilities for making the modeling and visualization and analysis easier to integrate. And so those are things that we're looking to get your feedback on, either through the listserv or the Slack, or if you feel strongly about it, you're welcome to hear your feedback here. Additionally, there have been some outreach from a few efforts. In particular, there's a task in detection engineering in the EU called OpenTide that's requested a technical exchange meeting with IOB. We'll be doing our first discussion with them just one-on-one later this week. But that's led me to the other feedback I've gotten from folks, which is meeting every 3 months is too infrequent for some folks. They would prefer something more often. And we do hear that. Something I'm going to look into is perhaps in the months between the actual IOB project meetings that focuses on IOB, try to bring back some webinars that we could host to showcase things. And so after we do our tech exchange with OpenTide, I might try to set one of those up. But probably try to see if we can do 1 or 2 webinars in the months in between IOB meetings in the future. That's at least our plan moving forward right now. Aside from that, I think right now I don't mind sharing, we're actively looking for opportunities to pilot IOBs, both for generation and for use. That's a big reason why we're building the job aids. I don't have any to announce at the moment, but I do think that we probably really need to get the point of piloting and doing several more robust demonstrations to get the word out and help with adoption. But that said, I wanted to open the mic to the entire group of attendees today to capture any other discussion points that you want to bring up. And I will take this silence as there are no additional discussion points. So Jason is just getting connected up to audio. Hi, Jason.
Hey, Charlie. How you doing?
Pretty good. Ironically, we just kind of gotten through most of the technical content, and I was just starting open discussion. And so you dialed in just at the right time. Though I do seem to be having some bandwidth challenges here today, which I'll try and get solved eventually. But some of the things that we were bringing up was we've gotten some feedback that every 3 months was a little too infrequent. And so while we're doing a lot of active research and development, I am going to look into how we might be able to schedule a few webinars in the off months to kind of at least share some of the newer developments that we're seeing related to the IOB project. And that we're looking for more opportunities where we could pilot and collaborate and share things like job aids and other tools to help foster industry adoption of IOB. But I also wanted to open the floor to anybody. So I'm not looking to put you on the spot in particular, Jason, but just saying if you had anything that you wanted to ask or talk about for the project, I'm happy to give you the mic for a few moments.
No, I regret not joining earlier. I had a couple things going on here, and then I saw your note in the Zoom with the new in the Slack with the new Zoom link, so I just clicked it.
All good.
So are you saying when you're talking about webinars, right? Are you talking about in addition to these calls, or are you saying these? Sorry, I got a little bit confused.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's fine. So these calls, we switched from monthly to every 3 months. And I've been getting some feedback that was too sparse. So I was going to look into like 1 or 2 30 to 45-minute technical talks to show in the off months.
Right. I was just, well, maybe we're just using different terminology here. When you say webinar, do you mean another Zoom call, or what do you mean by that?
It would be, sorry, yeah, it would be a Zoom call. It's just, it wouldn't be the full formal agenda, but as folks have had different technical issues.
You're talking about, so what you're talking about is like saying, okay, once every 3 months, we will have the IOB full call, full committee call, and full project call, but on a much more regular basis, we'll have these brief 30-minute technical update type calls, and that might be monthly, maybe more or less, whatever you're talking about. That's what you're referring to, but it's all on. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because like when you said webinar, I was picturing like a unidirectional. Okay, we're going to do like a big presentation, which sounded a little odd because then people wouldn't be able to give any feedback. But you're just talking about more of a technical call. It's a working call. Like, so in the DTITC, they have the regular calls and then they have the working calls. That's kind of what you're talking about.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And I thought we'd try to adopt that so that there could be more frequent, you could have the option for more frequent participation, but still maintain that we don't have to have the big discussion on management of the repo and extensions and those type of things every
Right.
month.
No, that makes perfect sense. And
Okay,
you know, you can like have it all on the calendar, and no, that sounds perfect to me.
okay, good. I appreciate it.
And the other
But
question, so you said that you were looking for more adoption or socialization of some of the work that you've been building.
yes, sir.
Like, have you gotten any consumers to date outside of yourself? Like, how are you tracking that?
So we are not well, is how we're tracking it. We are so far the only integration we've gotten were the things that we had at CASP, and towards that, I'm working with some of the lab sponsors on how we might be able to set up a little bit more formal industry interaction day. Nothing's on the calendar yet, as there's still a lot of planning going on for that. Because we're trying to look at that as well as trying to find opportunities to do some operational pilots to use IOBs. Because we do feel that those are probably some of the best ways we can help drive some capability forward. But
Right.
mostly we don't have a really good mechanism to see who's integrating it, but I can tell you that so far, not many tools are accepting Stix extensions. Those that do can share this. We were able to demonstrate that back at CASP with IMX, and just trying to capture feedback from folks on how ways that we can share the Stix extensions that we've been putting out on GitHub. And then once we've done that, showing how we could support those extended objects. And we are very open to anybody that wants to participate in some sort of simple capability demonstration or full up pilot. And those are things that we are actively looking for and also working on getting financial backing to help with. But
No, that makes sense. Like, I wonder if I don't know if we've ever talked to anyone in the MISP community about like, would MISP be able to consume this data and share it? Because that could be an interesting discussion.
I think it could be, and I think we could start. We've been doing. Our team at the lab has been doing a lot of work with MISP. I don't think we've gotten IOBs in there, but I think that there could be a good conversation to have with the folks at Circle. And
yeah,
Kurt,
that could be, that could be a good end-to-end use case, kind of driven around open source, right? Where you take some IOBs, if you're able to share it with others in MISP, and then consume that and say, well, this is the other piece then, is like taking that and converting it to a query or detection, right? Yep. Which you have some proof of concept for already, right? So
correct.
Then you've got a complete end-to-end open source based use case that, there's a few different organizations that, do a lot with MISP that might be interested in piloting that. I'm not going to name any names, but I can think of some.
As can I.
Yeah.
All righty. I appreciate that. And we'll keep that discussion going outside the meeting as well. But I see that, I've been talking mostly nonstop for the last 49 minutes. I wanted to see, and I don't think anybody's had anything else they wanted to like chime in with. So before I adjourn us, I wanted to give folks one last chance to ask a question or say anything they felt like they needed to say before I let us all go. And I will take that as everybody is wildly ecstatic for all these amazing developments and just full steam ahead for whatever we bring up for the next calls. So I thank all of you for your time, and I will turn off the recorder now.